Well, I managed to get back up home a little bit. I'm heading down Fondee Mountain. Most of you don't have a clue what I'm talking about. And here's a map. It's right on the Tennessee and Kentucky borderline. Beautiful country. Just west of Minnesboro, Kentucky, just east of Jellicoe, Tennessee. Coalfield country. Well, it was at one time. And it's some rugged country in here. No tourists hang around in this country. These are just homegrown mountain people for generations. In these mountains, no tourists. And there's sure not no traffic. This is rush hour. I met up with an old buddy of mine down here in Clearfield, and I followed him home. And we sit down and had a good time all day long, telling me old stories. Old Kurt. I call him Mountain Kurt. Just an old country boy raised in these old mountains. And he's such a nice guy too. We got together and he told me a bunch of stories, showed me the countryside, even played some instruments for me. And he shared some good old mystery stories of these mountains. He even played some music for me, old mountain music, on an old dulcimer. And I really enjoyed that. But he showed me so many places of just breathtaking of nature. Beautiful places. Just absolutely beautiful. Take your mind off anything. And he took me back in these old mountains and these old hollers and places that nobody hardly go. And showed me stuff like this. An old cemetery of only the good Lord knows who they are. So growed up. Beautiful country. But there's so many mysteries in these mountains to go along with that. Now, these old mountains, they hold a lot of secrets. A lot of secrets. And a lot of these old country people, especially in these old mountains, have seen things that they can't explain. I be one myself. But there's things in these mountains that don't want to be seen, that man just can't understand. And I'm going to share with you, with my old buddy Kurt here, some of the stories that he's witnessed. And I'll let him tell his story. But anyway, I try to recreate visually while he's telling the story of what he's talking about. So I hope you enjoy. Now, the first old story he told me that we're going to talk about, let him tell, he talked about seeing an old panther. But he didn't see it back in these mountains. He seen it in the city. I'll let him explain that story. You got any old panther stories or painter stories out of these mountains?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
I got one. We call them painters. I know the correct pronunciation is panther, but we call them painters. That's what all the old mountain people here, the holler people, we all call them painters. And heard stories growing up of people saying they heard a painter and they screamed, sound like a woman screaming or something like that. And growing up, been hearing this pretty much in this one holler my whole life, and you know, it runs into Tackett Creek and no business and into the Cumberland Mountains and stuff. And me and my friends as teenagers, us boys, we'd go camp. We didn't take no guns or anything. We'd just go, we called it laying out, and we'd go by the creek or up on the mountain and take us a sack full of taters and onions and some flour, and we'd cook and camp out overnight. And I know a lot of people said that, you know, they'd hear them, if they start cooking, they'd hear them down them hollers screaming or something we never did. And I never did, you know, think much about it until I think it was 2006. Me and one of my friends in Middlesboro, Kentucky, we were working, and we did a job, and we were building a carport for a man, and he had a whole lot of chickens, and something had been getting his chickens, and he had a live trap, and he caught a few coons and possums, and but something was still getting his chickens. So we went and built the carport. Then we went back on a Saturday morning to put shingles on it. Our boss sent us over there on a Saturday morning, and it was around 8 o'clock, and the sun was trying to break through, and the fog was lifting a little bit. We were nailing those shingles on, and my buddy hit me on the arm and he said, look, a mountain lion. And I thought, yeah, right. And I looked up, and up on the hill above those chicken cages, we saw a big cat sitting there. And it was so black and shiny that it looked blue. That's how dark it was. And just about as soon as we saw it, it got up and it walked out of sight over the hill, and we just sat there dumbfounded looking at each other and couldn't believe it, because it was right beside the golf course in Middlesboro, in a town like that. I've lived here in these woods and these hollers and hills, ridges all my life. Never saw anything like that, and that's the last place I expected to see something in a town right near a golf course.
Well, was it sitting there watching you when you noticed?
Yeah, it was sitting looking right down at us. I guess it was getting ready to get it a chicken, or probably done got it one that night before or something, but it was sitting there looking at us.
How far away was it?
I'd say probably 75 yards, probably.
Huh.
And,
just sitting there looking at you.
Yeah, yeah. And it had a big long tail. It's the size of a big dog. I mean, it was shiny.
Yeah, right in the middle of the town.
Right in the middle of the town, yeah. I know a lot of people probably don't believe it and didn't believe us when we told them, but I've got no reason to lie about it. It's the truth. Never expected to see something like that in a town. Especially, hey, look where I live right here in the, I mean, right in amongst all the trees and hollers. That's where you expect to see something like that, but it was in town.
Now this next story is a weird one. He shared with me about being back in these mountains, back in his younger days, up on an old strip job, coal mining country. Some weird sounds. Kurt, you growed up in these old mountains. You've seen and heard a lot of things you couldn't explain. You got any stories you'd like to share of something weird that's happened to you in these old mountains?
Well, let me tell you one I was telling you earlier. Let's touch on it a little bit. It was back in the late 70s, probably around 78 or something. My brother-in-law night watched for a coal company, and he had two younger brothers, and they were about my age, and a lot of times we go with him where he night watched all the strip mining equipment, all the dozers and stuff. We like go and have a big time jumping around on those dozers, and he had an old bus, and we'd cook and everything, had a good time there. But anyway, one day we were headed that way, and we stopped beside the road up there looking at something, and we heard something that caught our attention over the berm, over the side of the hill and the road down there. And we walked over to that berm, and we heard something down in the woods and making horrible noises. And it sounded like you saw those howler monkeys on the TV. And it really sounded a lot like those howler monkeys. It was making the awfulest noise you ever heard. But we couldn't see anything, but you could look way down through the wood line down and in the tops of the trees, and you could see the limbs and the leaves. It was in the summertime, and it was thick. But you could see the leaves in the trees and the limbs swaying back and forth. And like I said, it sounded just like a bunch of monkeys. But we never could see anything. Never could.
Was that late in the evening or night?
Yeah, it was late in the evening. It was before dark.
Huh. You never seen what it was?
Never seen it, but like I said, all you could see was the leaves and the limbs swaying back and forth and all the noise.
There were some weird experiences there, just mountain mysteries, things that we just can't explain in these old mountains. But this next story is some of his spooky stories he's told, one he really experienced. There's so many old stories and stuff in these mountains that's being forgotten. But you got anything you'd like to share with us as far as supernatural, unexplained stuff that you just couldn't explain?
Yeah, this is good. Now we're going to get into the haint stories. I never was really one that believed in ghosts and haints and boogers. Although mountain people here, they always scared me when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was really fascinated by them. My mom had great stories, and I loved to listen to her stories as a kid. I wanted to hear them, but when it was bedtime, that's when I dreaded it because I was going to have to go to bed, and then I was afraid they were real. And like I said, I never really, as I got older, got up in my teens, I didn't really believe in stuff like that. And then one time I saw something that I've never been able to explain. I experienced that, and that's really one thing that kind of shook me up a little bit about supernatural stuff. I have been up visiting my cousins, and grew up here in an old coal camp, this holler, and there was a big commissary that had been torn down years before we moved there, but there's still coal camp houses there, and quite a few residents left. But like I said, I was visiting my cousins, and it was dark. It hadn't been dark too long, and I was headed home down the little gravel road, and I got right past the steps that used to go up into the old big commissary, and I just barely got past it, and it was dark, like I said, but I could see, and I looked down the road toward where the mailboxes was near our house, and it was dark, but I saw something in the middle of the road that was even darker than the dark. It was extremely black, and it looked almost like the size and shape of a door, and it was just like instantaneously as I saw it, I stopped dead in my tracks when I saw it, and the moment that I saw it, it was just made a noise like a wind, and said, whew, and it felt like it went through me, and I actually felt, like I told you, I felt like the hair stood up on my head and my arms. I couldn't run. I wanted to run so bad, but I couldn't run, and I couldn't make a noise. I wanted to scream out. I couldn't, and I was walking. My legs felt like they weighed 500 pounds. I mean, it scared the life out of me. I finally made it to our house, and I went in, and as soon as I got in, I was probably 17, I guess. My mom and dad knew something was wrong. When they saw me, they said, "What in the world's wrong with you? You're white as a ghost." And I told them what had happened. And that's one mountain experience that I always felt like some kind of ghost, supernatural something, but that was a scary time.
I'd say that opened your mind up, didn't it?
Yeah, makes you not be so skeptical.
Now this last little story here is a spooky one of something his mom told his family story, of an old ghost story. Kurt, what's an old story that your mom told you out of these old mountains, her family growing up, that you remember?
Hey, my mom was a great storyteller. She could tell you stories all day and all night. She told me one particular story that used to scare me really bad when I was a kid. With all families back then, there wasn't no internet, and we barely had a TV back then, every now and then. And families they bonded more. They were, they sat around and tell stories and stuff. And all the elders like that had stories. And she told us one story of a family, and there was 3 brothers in that family. And back then there were so many kids in the house, you know, they all had to share beds and stuff like that. Well, these 3 brothers were in the bed, asleep. And the one over behind in the bed next to the wall, he said he woke up during the night and said there was an old looking woman standing beside the bed, and said she had on a blue dress and real long white blonde looking hair, and said her eyes was real kind of red looking. And it scared him, and he didn't know what to think, so he covered his head up. And he said he pulled the cover down just enough to where he could see out, and he said she was looking at his brother in the front, his other brother in the middle, then she would look at him. Then she'd look at his brother in the front, one in the middle of the bed, then over at him. And he said he took his foot and he started trying to scratch his brother's legs to wake him up. And he covered his head again. He looked back out, and he said she had his brother in the front, had him by the arm, like she was trying to pull him out of bed. Then he panicked and he screamed out, and his dad heard him screaming, and he came running in. He stubbed his toe coming towards the bedroom, and he came in the room hopping around on one leg and holding his toe. And their dad said as soon as he opened that door and come in that room, he said that said it was like a puff of blue smoke. You know how smoke just evaporates and goes away? He said that's what it looked like. He said it's just like a puff of blue smoke that evaporated and went away.
Well, that's a scary story.
Yeah, I wouldn't wanted to see nothing like that.
Me neither. Thanks for sharing. Well, there you have it. That's just a few of the old mysterious stories of these mountains that he's experienced. Everybody's got their own. They come from these Appalachian mountains, these hills. There's things in here that don't want to be seen, and we can't explain. So I hope you enjoy these little stories. I've got more to come. So I want to thank you for watching. God bless, and I'll see you next time.